And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Okay, well, tomorrow's weather shows this front draped along the west coast here with gusty winds and rain extending from the Alaska Peninsula right up the west coast here to the western Arctic coast. Increasing clouds tomorrow over the central interior, sunny and mild here over the east side, with temperatures back into the lower 70s in some areas. Definitely for the Susitna Valley, Copper River Basin, some few clouds along the Arctic or the North Gulf Coast. Not too bad there. Showers lingering over the southern panhandle, but drying out to the north. And then for the following day, got another system brings more rain into the central Aleutians. This system weakens, but leaves quite an area of showers and rain behind here from the western Arctic coast right on down into the Yukon Delta. Some diminishing showers over the Kuskokwim Delta. Rain pushing northeastward here into southern Cook Inlet and the central Kenai Peninsula area. Wet for Kodiak Island. Stays dry here over the east side and northeast part of the state to the Arctic coast, with temperatures holding there in the 70s in some locations. Southeast coast, dry weather, highs in the 65 to 75 degree range with light winds. As you can see tomorrow, looking at northwest winds here along the coast at 15 to 20 knots, with seas running 6 to 8 feet. And for the Stevens Passage, Clarence Strait area, northwest at 10, south at 10 for Lynn Canal. Variable winds 5 to 10 knots for the inside waters on Wednesday, and west-northwest winds here along the south coast at 10 to 15 knots, and variable winds at 10 knots for the north coast. So very nice conditions for the next couple of days here for all of the southeast coast. And for Prince William Sound, the North Gulf Coast, light variable winds at 10 knots, seas 5 feet out along the North Gulf Coast, only 2 feet in the Sound. Southwest 15 there for the Barren Islands, southeast 15 for Kamishak Bay, Cook Inlet variable winds at 10 knots. And for the day Wednesday, northwest and northeast winds for Cook Inlet, only at 10 knots though, seas at 2 feet. East winds 15 knots for Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands. And variable winds at 10 for the eastern North Gulf Coast, east at 10 for Prince William Sound, northeast 15 for the western North Gulf Coast with 5-foot seas. Kodiak Island, southwest wind 15 knots tomorrow, seas 4 to 5 feet. The Alaska Peninsula, south to southeast winds at 15 to 25 knots, southeast at 15 for Bristol Bay. Seas here along the peninsula running 3 to 6 feet and about 3 feet for Bristol Bay. And then for Wednesday, along the Alaska Peninsula, west-northwest winds 15 to 20 knots, seas running 5 to 7 feet. West at 20 knots with 7-foot seas for Bristol Bay. Variable winds at 10 knots for Kodiak Island. Eastern Aleutians, Unalaska Islands, south winds 25 to 30 knots with seas up to 8 feet. Unimak Island, west at 15 knots. Adak and Atka, northwest winds at 15 knots. And for the Western Aleutians, south to southwest winds at 10 to 15 knots. And then for the day Wednesday, for the Western Aleutians there, Kiska to Shemya, variable to northeast winds at 10 to 20 knots. And around Amchitka Island, east and northeast winds 15 to 25 knots. Adak and Atka, east winds 15 to 20 knots. Unimak Island, variable winds at 10 and west winds at 20 for Unalaska Island. For the southwest coast, St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound, small craft advisories, south winds at 30 knots with seas 6 to 7 feet. Southwest at 20 for the Purblos with 6-foot seas, and west winds 25 knots with 9-foot seas for St. Matthew Island. Much lighter winds here, especially on the Yukon Delta coast up to Norton Sound on Wednesday. 15-knot winds there, north for Norton Sound, northwest for the Yukon Delta coast and St. Lawrence Island. Still looking at small craft advisories here for the Kuskokwim Delta coast for northwest winds at 25 knots and seas at about 5 feet. Eastern Boulevard Sea Coast tomorrow, east-southeasterlies at 15 knots, seas 3 feet. South at 20 knots for the central and western Arctic coast with 4 to 6-foot seas. And we've got small craft advisories for the Chukchi Sea. Winds right out of the south at 20 to 30 knots with seas 6 to 8 feet. And then those winds swing around to the north on Wednesday for the Chukchi Sea, 15 to 20 knots, seas at about 5 feet or so. And for the western Arctic coast, we've got north winds at 15 knots, north winds at 10 knots for the central coast, south winds at 10 knots for the eastern Beaufort Sea.